presidential debates that Pence had been mansplaining to Kamala Harris made many people go, mansplaining, what is that? I would assume that is a man talking down to a woman. That would be my guess. How far off am I?
I think you're pretty much right there, and I had never heard this term before until last week, but after intense Googling and research, it's been around for about 5 years, and I had never heard anybody use it. Maybe it's just because of my circle in life, but have you ever heard anybody use this term?
I'd never seen it before.
Yeah, I hadn't either.
It became kind of a hot news headline after the vice presidential debate.
Yes,
so I kind of figured out what it meant, but albeit I'll say, and this has nothing to do with parties or anything else, I didn't see that in the vice presidential debate. I mean, if you're debating with someone, that's your whole mission is to get the upper hand and whatever.
Counter arguments, discredit.
Has nothing to do with your sexuality when you're in debate with someone.
Nothing at all.
You're in a verbal war.
I'm still amazed at how much our society allows language to change. And this has been going on forever. You know, I would say at least the past 50 or 60 years, creating new words and definitions that I'm sorry, but I don't call this a real word. Mansplaining? For a number of reasons. But, you know, when you control language, you control context. And that's really what matters. But I'm also shocked at how we are just tearing down the relationship between men and women, it seems, as much as possible.
We're tearing it down between races, we're tearing it down between religions, we're
across the board,
tearing it down between parties, and it's sad.
So if you Google it, the short Google definition is just a condescending or explanation that is traditionally from a man to a woman in, what is the other word they use? Condescending and, maybe it's demeaning? I can't remember, but whatever it was very brief, and there was really no... Patronizing, thank you, gosh. So condescending or patronizing manner, generally from a man to a woman, and that's basically all it says. But if you keep looking on the internet, it actually says that mansplaining is a term utilized by feminists when they are being called on an inaccurate narrative or dialogue, and the opposing party is the one discrediting that inaccurate narrative or dialogue. And so if we look at it from the standpoint of it's simply an explanation, a fact-based explanation that is put forth in an assertive and direct manner to discredit somebody, then every attorney I have ever met, every veteran, every police officer, every active duty service member, all of them are mansplaining.
Well, it's human.
Along with every doctor, you know. It is just human. But to create a new word that is so sexist against men by women who are constantly bellyaching that sexism is the problem is the ironic part. And I think they lack the insight to see that.
It's like just a racist calling something racist or creating terms of racial divide.
The term reverse racism. There is no such reverse racism. It's either racism or it's racism, and those are your choices. There is no such thing as reverse racism. And with this instance in particular, I don't know if they did it on purpose, but do you remember in I Love Lucy when Ricky in his thick Cuban accent would tell Lucy to start splaining?
Right.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
I don't know if they intentionally paired it with that word or not.
You got some splaining
to do. And generally it was about how she blew the budget and didn't spend money properly or owed somebody, money for a hat or whatever it was. But he would say you have some splaining to do. And I don't know if they took it from that or if they just can't spell, because no kidding, the word explaining has an X in it and the word mansplaining has an S in it. And so I'm not sure exactly how they came to that term, but the irony that it is a sexist term and that's what they're constantly, like I said, complaining about, that just amazes me. How does that fight sexism for women to say that men are mansplaining something? Could you imagine if we called it womansplaining or chicksplaining?
Right.
What would happen?
I would not want to be the creator of in one of those.
Yes.
But let's go back to, you mentioned I Love Lucy. And I'm sure if you go back and look at the episodes, anytime he wanted her to explain, as he would say.
Explain it to me. Yeah.
she had really goofed up, and there was an explanation
Oh,
necessary
absolutely.
somewhere, because
Absolutely.
only Lucy could get herself into some of the
That's
things
exactly
that
right.
Lucy
And
got
you know,
herself
that
into.
show, I know people criticize it because it's 1950s housewives and things, but
Right.
there were episodes still where she went and got a job and didn't like it. You remember the chocolate factory
Oh,
one?
yeah, she
where
did terrible
he
at
was
that job,
tasked
by the
with
way.
cooking or taking care of the household, and he did a terrible job. And so
Right.
it just goes to show that men are not replaceable and women are not replaceable.
Right, and one's not any more valuable than
Yes,
the other,
yes,
because
you know-
we're like a puzzle. We need someone, whether
yes.
it be man, woman, or
The
whatever.
the salt to your pepper, if you will.
Right,
Yeah.
and
When we think about mansplaining, you know, I sit with men all day long, 90% of whom have served in the military, and all of them are assertive, direct, fact-based. Even some of the women that I sit with are still assertive, direct, and fact-based. That does not mean that they are condescending. It does not mean they are patronizing. It simply means that they have a certain style of speaking. The problem is that when a lot of those people get out of the military and they go into the civilian work world, they're called confrontational. They're
Right.
a bit overbearing for some, which, you know, we have talked about in session many times, that people don't understand that I'm just making a point. I'm not yelling, I'm not upset, I'm not angry. But, you know, assertiveness now in today's world, if we're not meek and mild and cowering to the other opponent's opinion, then we're overly aggressive. And what's the new term? Microaggression, which is also
I
a
can't
made
keep
up
up with
term.
all the new terms,
Yeah,
but right,
yeah.
microaggression.
Microaggression,
whatever.
yes. And so, you know, when will we just say that it's okay for people to have differing opinions, that men are men, that women are women, that people will communicate in different ways? It doesn't have to be a sexist term.
We don't have.
Explaining, talk about toxic for men, you know, and I guarantee the angry feminist who created this word was probably being confronted on her false narrative, and there was some type of inaccuracy, and she got bent out of shape and felt the need to start name calling to deflect from the fact that she had no argument, is my guess.
And
And
use
I'm-
it to garner support from other people in
Yes.
a sexist way,
in a sexist way.
versus the actual content or
Yes.
narrative.
Yes, exactly. And I think, you know, to a certain extent, that side, the feminist side is what I mean. I think they have forgotten that we need the opposite sex. You know,
We all
they
need
think
each other.
we do. They think that they can function independently, you know, without any complementary partner whatsoever. And you can try that world, but no one will survive. You know, men need women and women need men. That's the
Now,
bottom line.
let's go back to mansplaining, though. You don't have to be a man to do mansplaining.
I think,
Apparently, according to the definition.
according to the definition,
The explanation of something, it does say, I guess, by a man, typically it says
to a woman.
woman, in a manner regarded as condescending or patronizing. So, I
And
guess.
if that's the case, then I would argue that Senator Harris was doing the exact same thing that she criticized the vice president of doing. And, you know,
But tried to use the
yes,
get a
the
win
sexist
because
card.
he was a man and she was
Yeah,
a woman,
the
and that was
sexist
therefore
card.
inappropriate.
absolutely.
That's just what
Absolutely.
we'll do to try to win an argument in this country.
It is, but if you're a man, please do me a favor and don't buy into that. You know, and if you're a woman, don't use the word mansplaining. Just call it condescending and patronizing.
Yeah, because
Call
that's
it what
what it is. That's
and,
right.
And that's actual English, by the way. And you know, to